Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge. This is Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law. And today I have as my guest, Colin Crawford. He is the Dean of Golden Gate University School of Law, and we're very excited to have him on the podcast.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really thrilled to have you, Dean Crawford, because you are a dean that has the experience of two law schools. I know you started as the dean of Louis D. Brandeis School of Law at the University of Louisville, but now you are at Golden Gate. So if you can tell us a little bit about your journey to a dean position in the first place and what prompted you to join Golden Gate in June of 2021.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for asking and the opportunity to share this. So I think of myself as the accidental dean. I never formally went on the dean market, but in 2016, in the last month of the year, my name got into some kind of hat and I received calls to apply for deanships at 5 different law schools. And I thought maybe the universe was telling me something at that time. I had a chair at Tulane where I was very happy, enjoyed my job. I had some administrative duties, but I thought, as I said, the universe might be telling me something. So I applied. I advanced in 2 of the searches. I really liked the people at Louisville and at Brandeis. And a year later, I was their dean. So it was unexpected. I loved my time at Louisville. I loved that community, and a shout out to all of my friends there. I was on the ABA site team visit to Golden Gate in March of 2020. We actually left the day before San Francisco closed down, locked down for the first time.
Oh my goodness.
And, yeah. And as you may know, on an ABA site team visit, the dean's responsibility, they usually try and have a dean, is to talk to faculty. And as I wrote in my ABA and AALS reports subsequently that term, I was very taken by the commitment of everyone at Golden Gate to the mission of the school. For 120 years, Golden Gate has been has had a very strong self-identity as a school of access and opportunity. First, primarily for immigrants and others who are excluded from the profession, women, and then increasingly for a much more racially and ethnically diverse population. And I was really, really taken by that strong institutional commitment across the board. Every other person mentioned it. And then they came and recruited me. And frankly, my decision to come was sort of pandemic inspired. You know, in those moments in the pandemic, you thought, where can I really make a big difference? I was, I think, doing well at Louisville, enjoying my job, really well integrated into the community. But I saw the challenge and the opportunity here at Golden Gate to be really a unique one. I can't think of many law schools that are so mission driven. And so that was very, very appealing to me. And here I am.
That story is so interesting and exciting for a number of reasons. First, being the accidental dean who all of a sudden was nominated to 5 positions. I think you certainly had to answer the call at that point.
Right.
But then that you would become dean in a place that you'd done a site visit and became familiar with during a site visit. That's really quite something. And I imagine unique in our dean colleague journeys, I would think.
Well, actually, Barry Currier, who's very well known to a lot of the dean listeners anyway, who was, with the ABA for a long time and had also been, of course, a dean himself, and has said to me, as has Bucky Askew, also well known to people who work with the ABA. Bucky was actually our team, the head of our site visit team, said, I'm not the first, that it's actually more commonly
Really?
that people get recruited from the site visit team. Yeah. Well, and also, you come in, Golden Gate has challenges, but I knew the warts coming in, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's a huge thing.
And so, you have a much more well-rounded picture of the school than you might in other circumstances.
That's very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we just got finished with our site visit, actually, a few weeks ago. And I'm very happy to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, I know it's no fun. It's no fun when you're on the visited side.
No. And so you mentioned actually being in a position where you had a lot of transparency, obviously from Golden Gate, if you're a member of the site team, visiting them and evaluating them. And so you knew of some of the challenges you would be facing at this very intensive mission-driven school. So you told us a little bit about the positives. What were the concerns that you had coming in?
Well, the concerns, or the kind of things I was aware of, I should say, were first and foremost that I knew we were having a bar pass problem, and Golden Gate and schools like it, historically have struggled with bar pass, and that's become even more serious, of course, since the 2019 rule change, the standard 316 change with the ABA, that requires that 75% of your graduates who sit for a bar need to pass a bar within 2 years of graduation. So I knew that that was a possible risk. In fact, it was turned out to be even more serious than I had anticipated when I arrived, and put us into non-compliance. I also knew, and this is of course a very common problem for legal education generally, that we were going to have financial challenges. We're all facing a demographic cliff. Enrollments in law schools are down, as much as 10%, depending where you are in the country right now. And so, and that may be a structural decline. So I knew that, I'd be facing those challenges as well. And of course, San Francisco is the most, if not, or maybe one of the two most expensive real estate markets in the country. And, that makes living here challenging for students, faculty, and staff alike. So I knew that, that poses special problems as well.
So let's focus on the bar pass issue to start with, a challenge that all law schools have to work with. And obviously the students who come to us for their JD degree very much want to pass the bar. That's a big goal for them and a huge goal for us. So when you were found at Golden Gate to be out of compliance, what was the initial reaction? What did your leadership team, the university leadership team, decide would be the way you would handle this?
Right. Well, so as you may know, you get the notice. I mean, the notice is going to be coming once you figure out your 2-year rates, which is before it actually arrives. So we knew we were at 67.7% our 2-year rate in my first 6 months. And so I knew the notice was coming. And so we started to have internal conversations. And I said, I've seen schools go into this tailspin before. And the typical thing to do is you cut down your size of your class a little for a few years. You buy better students effectively. And we started having discussions triggered in part by the expense of living here and how we could reduce the debt burden. Debt burden is something that needs to concern all of us in higher education, not just legal higher education. And so we really started to talk internally about what we could do differently. And I was very lucky that during this period, the university decided to hire a provost as well, which as a small university, we had never had. And I was lucky because the person who was hired is a former law professor from the University of Arizona. He was tenured at Arizona, named Brent White, known to many of your listeners, I'm sure, a really dynamic, visionary guy. And so he and I started having conversations very soon after we knew what our results would be. And we really put our heads together and said, let's try to do something dramatically different that will both serve our historical mission as a school of access and opportunity, try and reduce the debt burden that students face, and also address in a thoughtful and aggressive way our bar noncompliance issues. And the plan we came up with, I think, reflects that we really served all of those 3 goals.
Well, and the plan that I'd love for you to describe is so bold. I mean, talk about a disruptive approach to providing a legal education. Please expand on what you all decided to do. And I know you have your first class in-house under this new plan.
Yes, we do. And I'm happy to have the chance to describe it. So all newly admitted students this year and going ahead, full-time students receive what we call presidential scholarships, which are full tuition scholarships. And those scholarships will continue during the entire term of a student's candidacy for the JD. The only thing they have to do is remain in good standing, which is getting a 2.3 GPA or above, right? So it's not impossible, but it's pretty hard without reasonable work to get below a 2.3. And so tuition free, and that means tuition free. There are no hidden costs. There are no hidden bells or whistles. There are only a couple of small student organization fees that students pay, and those get passed on straight to the student organizations. And so it's a tuition-free education for that term. We really hope then that by reducing the debt burden, we're going to put people in a position to go back and do the work that brought them to come to law school. We have a lot of students who want to do social justice work. We are one of the most diverse schools in the country by almost any measure. By the categories, the ABA measures for racial and ethnic diversity, we're at about 50% in this class. 60% of our students approximately are first in family to go to graduate school, and a lot of them are first in family to go to college, and often first in family to go to high school. So these are not people who come with silver spoons in their mouths. Many of them want to go back and work in the communities and serve the communities they came from, and we really hope that now we're putting them in the position to be able to do that.
Well, a no tuition plan, that's really incredible, and the kind of plan that we hear every so often at some of the elite institutions. How is Golden Gate able to do this? And can you tell us the results of your first year of recruitment? So the class of fall 2022 that would fall under this. How many students do you have, and how did you recruit them?
Right. So there was a bit of a chicken or egg issue in the recruiting in this last season because we were waiting for ABA acquiescence on a couple of new degrees. And this is key to the what we're calling our transformation plan, because the new degrees are going to help finance the tuition-free plan. We are not like some of the elite universities. We don't have a huge endowment, so we have to have a way to finance this. So we were waiting for ABA acquiescence, and we couldn't announce it. So much of the recruiting for this year's class was just done by offering people full tuition scholarships without indicating that they would be a part of this novel class. We did nonetheless. We have a class that is about a fourth of the size of the previous year's class. We have 21 students in the full-time program, 24 students in our part-time program, which is a hybrid program. Weekends and then asynchronous online. And the hybrid program, many but not all of the students receive the full tuition. So we think that the recruitment going ahead will be rather different, and because now we can indicate that this is our mission, this is our commitment, rather than just offering individuals these full tuition scholarships. But that's still a work in process. It's early in the recruiting season, of course.
And what is your class size goal or your law school enrollment goal for the JD program? Yeah,
so we're hoping that within 2 or 3 years, we'll be to between 50 and 75 students in each class, in each entering class. That's our sort of sweet spot, and so we hope we'll get there. We may, with our what we call our JD Flex program, which is our part-time program, we may grow that to be somewhat larger. It just depends on sort of the changing market. But for the JD, about 50 to 75.
Well, this is really exciting that somebody could consider getting a JD degree for no tuition over their 3 years at law school. And so where should students reach out if they're interested in this? Is this something they can apply to through their the website or through LSAC? Will all students be considered for this full tuition benefit?
Yeah, all students will be considered for this benefit. And certainly all applicants, and I'll mention another really interesting feature of our plan in this connection. And people can apply through the regular means by contacting our admissions office through the website, and also, of course, through the LSAC as normal. At least until we get into ABA compliance, we have commitments to the ABA to get to a median LSAT and undergraduate GPA. We have to get to a median 153 and 3.25 undergraduate GPA. We actually exceeded that this year. Our entering class came in at 154 median and 3.3. It's the strongest class we've had in years, and we hope we continue to grow that while also remaining as diverse as we always have been. And again, that's been an important part of it. We didn't want suddenly to become the school that did not reflect the larger society. One thing we've also done, per your question about how students can apply, as I said, we're waiting for acquiescence from the ABA on 2 new programs. And as you know, the ABA standard is that you can get acquiescence from the ABA. They don't actually accredit these programs, non-JD programs, but acquiescence so long as they don't burden the delivery of the JD. And our new degrees are a Master of Law Studies. It's a 30-credit master degree that can be completed in 1 calendar year that very closely approximates the first year of law school. It's very affordable. It's under $20,000. And we designed this degree also to be an introduction for people who, like many of our students, have no family or social experience of the legal profession before, so they can get an idea of what law and legal study is like, get their feet wet for a year. And if these students do very well, that is, if they enter our masters and get a 3.5 or above in their law courses, they will have priority consideration for the tuition-free JD, if that's what they want to do. So we're also hoping to maintain our very diverse population and give people the chance to learn about law that way. We've also launched, or we are about to launch in January, BA in law. So it's a law major, again, 30 credits in law of the 121 undergraduate major. Again, very much like the first year of law school. And so we're really hoping that these will serve as kind of law, as incentive programs for students to learn about law, and also serve the large number of people who need legal training but don't want to or have the time for studying for a JD. Some of your previous interviews have talked about the need for this kind of education, and we're actually beginning to provide it. There's so many jobs that require legal knowledge and legal education that don't require a license to practice law. And so we're really hoping to fill that market.
Well, that's terrific. We have also had we call it a Master's of Jurisprudence for about 7 years now. And you're right, whether it's human resources or healthcare compliance or cybersecurity, I mean, there are so many areas where people could benefit from legal expertise, or they're being asked to have some legal expertise, but they don't need to undertake the expense and the time of getting a JD and taking the bar exam.
Right.
So for your smaller classes now, your tuition-free classes and your transformative plan, other than increasing the medians, which is terrific, what other bar preparation efforts are you embarking on to ensure that you can get back in compliance?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, well, one of the things we wanted to do also, this plan was not just looking ahead, but we also have the current students to worry about. And so I started in just over or just under a year and a half ago. And over the course of the last academic year here, we put in a number of new initiatives. A tenure track faculty member met with every one of the almost 150 students who were taking the bar for the first time and sat down with them for an hour and came out with a plan for their bar study and counseled them on how to study. We required all bar tested classes here now have to have MBE type multiple choice questions, at least, I forget the number, but I want to say it's 25 at least on a final exam. We've also then increased the number of our bar pass and bar assistants, academic support staff. We've doubled it in the last year. And so we're doubling down, helping those students who we have now who are already resident to make sure that they're better positioned to pass the bar. And we also received a very generous gift from an alumna that allowed us last spring to give out almost $350,000 in awards to students taking the bar, because unlike students from many more privileged schools, lots of our students continue to work during the bar exam or have significant dependent care responsibility. We wanted to relieve them of that. So we gave out those awards to help alleviate that. We hope we'll give more in the future. We just gave out a little, I think almost 115,000, the same gift for the February 23 bar exam study. And we hope we'll be able to continue to do that as well. We just got back the July 22 results, and we were up almost 15% in our first time pass rate overall from the previous year. And so that gives me some indication that this myriad of efforts that we undertook made a difference.
That's really exceptional. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
And I want to applaud.
And believe me, that took a village. I mean,
Yes, we have our own little village here too. And I'm especially appreciative of your alum who invested those funds. I think sometimes I encounter alums who are, interested in increasing bar passage, and well, I don't want to give more until bar pass is up and that kind of thing. But it's a chicken and an egg thing, as you mentioned earlier. A lot of times you need the additional resources to enable students to focus on the bar, especially when you're serving a group as we do that's majority minority.
Right, absolutely right. With no large reserves of family wealth to draw upon. So exactly.
I mean, I'm sure in taking the bar, I'm not sure if you worked. I didn't work, but it was hard enough not working and taking the bar and being successful.
I did not work, and I can't imagine it. I mean,
I can't either. Yeah. It's great anytime we can give our students help like that. You also have an international LLM program we were talking about earlier. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So as I said, we knew that we had to find other ways to produce income if we're going to have a tuition-free class. And so we've just started offering, as part of what's called GGU Golden Gate University, GGU Worldwide. The university's offering a range of asynchronous degrees now, and one of them is an LLM in International Business and Finance Law. We started our first cohort in July, welcomed another cohort in October. We have a total of about 45 students, all international. These are not degrees that are available to people in the US. And that's because the tuition is keyed to non-US markets. And so we hope there as well to be able to grow our numbers, not just where these degrees are. Our student population right now is mostly from South Asia, and we're slowly going to be growing into other markets as well. But so that's very exciting as well. And we've had very, very good reviews from those students so far, and very pleased with how that's going. We're about to start another one of these international programs that we haven't launched it yet, and that's still in formation. So I'll hold my tongue on that one, but we have that going as well.
Well, now you got a reason to come back. Well, you must have a very forward-thinking university leadership team and group of advisors in order to be making these bold steps. I know a dean can suggest things, but we can't do things without a team of people supporting the ideas and initiatives. So tell us a little bit about what you've encountered as you and the law school have come up with some of these transformational ideas.
Well, so I mean, I have to say there, I feel really blessed. And again, I think a key actor here is our provost, Brent White, himself a former law professor who understands the legal world. I'm not sure that without someone who understood legal education and its challenges and needs, that we'd be in the same position. But he's received a very positive hearing from our president and our trustees. And I think here, one of the things that attracted me when I was recruited to apply to come to Golden Gate is true. It's a relatively small university, right? It's not a typical liberal arts university. It historically is focused on training people for professions where they could get into the world right away and make a solid living. So there, I think we have the agility that larger universities, just in the nature of the beast, don't have.
What's the size of the larger university?
Oh, I should know the numbers, and I'm afraid I don't, Patty. But we have 3 principal schools. We have a graduate school that includes, well, actually, let me take that back. We have a business school, an accounting and tax school, and then some ancillary graduate programs under the graduate school umbrella. We have an undergraduate school with a limited range, although increasingly diverse, but a limited range of undergraduate degrees, and then the law school. So, you know, it's not a sort of standard full service university in that way.
Well, still doing a lot of very cool, far-reaching, innovative things. So I have likened what's going on in legal education right now as to the Wild West in a lot of ways. I mean, we've had news recently about the ABA moving away from requiring the LSAT. Perhaps in 2025, we have the Supreme Court looking at race and admissions. We have the U.S. News exodus. So if you'd like to weigh in on any of those in particular, I'd love to hear your views. And I'd also love to hear where you think we're going in the coming decade in legal education.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Of course, the one we're thinking about all the time. I'm actually on the U.S. Law Deans Advisory Group that has been working over the past year or more with U.S. News, and I'm going to be the vice chair of that group, which will be led starting next year by Elizabeth Kronk-Warner from Utah. And so I've been thinking about U.S. News quite a lot. I'm not sure that, although that is a tsunami of its kind, I'm not sure it's particularly costly to most of the schools who have pulled out so far to have pulled out, and probably very savvy on their part, because given what the Supreme Court's likely to decide, it's going to give them more leeway to ensure that they have diverse classes, which is going to then increase the pressure on all of us to be creative, to find other ways to ensure our diversity, which I think, from what I know of your school, is important to you. It's important to us, and this is really going to shake things up. As for whether the House of Delegates will actually approve that change, I'm going to withhold comment there, because I'm not a betting man, and so I don't know how that's going to come out. But I do think your analogy is quite right. It's really the Wild West, and I would just conclude by saying, I think, and I heard your podcast with David Thompson at Denver recently, and I think David is really spot on, and he's someone who's thought about this in a very deliberate and thoughtful way for years, that law schools need to stop thinking of themselves as only vehicles for the delivery of the JD degree. And that's where I think law has to go for all of us. And that you know, there are many models around the world. Many years ago after law school, I worked in Japan for a Japanese law firm. And at that time, it's changed, but in Japan at that time, less than 10% of people who studied law and took the bar passed the bar. But all of the people who studied law ended up getting jobs, often using law. right? In corporations, it was just
Huh.
part of the system. The expectation was not that you had to pass the bar. That was for the super high achievers. Now, again, that has changed because of rules in the Japanese bar, although the passage rate is still much lower than it is here. My point is that Japan, other countries recognize that there is a need for legal training outside of licensure to be a practicing lawyer. And I think that the sooner we sort of look that needs squarely in the face and ask how we can meet the demand for those careers, I think it's going to give vitality to a lot of institutions, and that many institutions who fail to kind of look around at those new needs are going to face some trouble.
I think you're exactly right. We can be part of the solution that is coming for the people who need a legal education of some sort that is not a JD. We can be part of the solution for the access to justice needs of the country that are unmet by training paraprofessionals and non-JD individuals in law, or we can watch others do it for us, right?
Right. Someone's going to fill that gap. I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing the transformative plan that you have instituted at Golden Gate. I'll be watching with great interest to see how your increasingly diverse class with no debt succeeds and marches towards the bar exam with great success. And thank you for being a model for the rest of us for things that are possible.
Well, thank you, Patty. And I would just say our hope is that others will copy what we are doing, right? We really thought of this as an opportunity to say, to shake things up and say to others, look, you know, we have to find a new solution because of a non-compliance problem, but this is a moment to really, for all of us to think of doing things differently. So I hope we are just the first of many that follow this path.
Well, you're a terrific example of finding opportunity out of what could have been for some people a crisis, and you instead turn this into a real positive for legal education. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. That's our hope. Thanks very much. Appreciate the time.